The emergency lights flashed red across the Great Hall of Nexus Prime. Ambassador Zethkari walked quickly through the curved corridors, his 4 arms carrying data tablets filled with disturbing reports. The Galactic Council had called this meeting for a reason that made every species nervous. Something had gone wrong in the Outer Rim territories. The hall could hold representatives from 3,000 different worlds. Today, only the major powers had come. The Vailthon hegemony, the Zephyrian Navy, the Crystalline Collective, and dozens of smaller groups. They all sat in their special chairs, breathing their preferred atmospheres through personal life support systems. The air hummed with translation devices working in hundreds of languages. Council Speaker Morden struck the ceremonial gong. The massive alien looked like a walking tree with bark-like skin and glowing yellow eyes. When he spoke, his voice carried through every translator in the room. Fellow beings of the galaxy, we face a problem unlike any in our 50,000 years of recorded history. Ambassador Zethkari will explain what happened in the Terran system. Zethkari stood up slowly. His purple skin had turned pale with stress, and his usually proud stance seemed broken. Behind him, a holographic display showed star charts and ship designs. The crowd grew quiet. 3 months ago, our exploration fleet encountered a new species in a small star system on the galaxy's edge. They call themselves humans. They come from a planet called Earth. At first, everything seemed normal. We followed the standard first contact protocol that has worked with 847 other species. The display showed images of strange bipedal creatures. They had only 2 arms and 2 legs, which seemed primitive compared to most galactic species. Their skin came in different shades of brown and pink. Most bizarre of all, they had hair growing from their heads and faces. Captain Vorthak of the dreadnought Crimson Talon intercepted their colony ship, the New Horizon. The ship was large but clearly primitive. It used chemical rockets for propulsion and had no energy shields. Our tactical computers estimated we could destroy it in less than 3 seconds. Images of the human ship appeared. It looked crude and blocky compared to the elegant curves of galactic vessels. Several council members made sounds of amusement. How could such a primitive species pose any threat? Captain Vorthak demonstrated our superior firepower by destroying an asteroid near their ship. The vaporization should have made our capabilities clear. Then he sent the standard surrender demand. Every species in the galaxy understands this protocol. When faced with overwhelming force, the logical response is immediate surrender. This prevents unnecessary loss of life and allows for peaceful integration into galactic civilization. Zethkari paused and looked around the room. His expression grew darker. The humans refused. A wave of confused murmurs swept through the assembly. Several translators asked for clarification, certain they had made an error. The concept of refusing surrender when faced with superior force was so alien that many languages lacked proper words for it. Their exact response was transmitted on all frequencies. The message was simple and brief. Come and take it. Our xenolinguists confirmed the translation was accurate. When Captain Vorthak demanded an explanation, the humans simply repeated the same phrase. The speaker leaned forward, his bark-like face showing confusion. Ambassador, perhaps there was a cultural misunderstanding. Did they not comprehend the demonstration of force? That was Captain Vorthak's assumption. He ordered a warning shot across their bow, close enough to damage their outer hull without destroying the ship. The humans responded by opening fire. The holographic display showed tactical readouts from the battle. Red dots representing human weapons fire streaked toward the much larger Vailthon ship. The weapons were primitive kinetic projectiles that could barely scratch modern armor. The battle lasted 18 minutes. During this time, the human ship continued firing even as our return shots tore away sections of their hull. They never requested mercy. They never attempted to negotiate. They simply fought until their weapons were destroyed and their ship was crippled. Images from the boarding action appeared. Vailthon soldiers in their advanced combat suits moved through the damaged human ship. Bodies floated in the corridors, but the expressions on the dead human faces showed no fear. They looked angry even in death. Captain Vorthak then proceeded with standard boarding procedures. This is where the situation became truly incomprehensible. The humans continued to resist even inside their own damaged ship. They used their primitive kinetic weapons against our plasma rifles. They threw explosive devices that damaged their own vessel. In several cases, humans physically attacked our soldiers with nothing but their bare hands and crude metal tools. The council chamber fell silent. The idea of continuing to fight when defeat was certain violated every principle of civilized behavior. It was not just illogical, it was insane. The boarding action resulted in the deaths of 93 humans and 47 of our soldiers. Captain Vorthak reported that not a single human surrendered voluntarily. Those who were captured had to be physically overpowered while unconscious. Even the wounded continued to fight until they collapsed from blood loss. A representative from the Crystalline Collective spoke up. Her voice sounded like wind chimes as it came through the translator. Ambassador, what was their strategic goal? What did they hope to accomplish through such futile resistance? Zethkari's expression became even more troubled. We interrogated the survivors. Their answers made no logical sense. They claimed they were fighting for something they called freedom. When we explained that surrender would have preserved their lives and allowed them to serve the hegemony, they became angry. One of them said, "We would rather die free than live as slaves." The phrase hung in the air like a toxic cloud. The concept was so foreign that several species had to have it explained multiple times. To choose death over servitude seemed like a form of mental illness. The surviving humans were transported to Processing Station 7 for standard integration procedures. However, they refused to cooperate with any aspect of the process. They would not work, would not accept food, and would not respond to any form of incentive or punishment. After 2 weeks, they had to be force-fed to prevent them from dying of starvation. More images appeared showing gaunt human faces staring defiantly at their captors. Even in prison uniforms, beaten and malnourished, their eyes burned with unextinguished rage. The situation became worse when we discovered that the humans had sent a message to their home system before the battle. Our intelligence division intercepted follow-up transmissions. The human government on Earth was not demanding negotiations for the return of their people. Instead, they were preparing for war. The final image showed long-range scans of the Terran system. Ships were moving between planets. Construction was happening on a massive scale. Even from a distance, it was clear that humanity was mobilizing for conflict. Speaker Morden struck his gong again. What is the military assessment? The humans pose no immediate threat to major galactic powers. Their technology is centuries behind ours. However, their behavior represents something unprecedented. In 50,000 years of galactic history, no species has ever chosen extinction over integration. The psychological implications are disturbing. A young representative from the Altarian Republic stood up. Surely they will see reason when faced with the full might of galactic civilization. Once they understand the futility of resistance, they will surrender like every other species. Zethkari looked at the young alien with something approaching pity. That is what Captain Vorthak believed. It is what we all believed. But the evidence suggests otherwise. These humans appear to be fundamentally different from every other sapient species we have encountered. They seem to prefer death to defeat. The council chamber erupted in worried conversations. If the humans truly could not be made to surrender, it changed everything about how the galaxy worked. For 50,000 years, superior force had guaranteed submission. Now for the first time they faced an enemy that might fight to the very end. Speaker Morden struck his gong repeatedly until order was restored. We will monitor the situation closely. All ships are to avoid the Terran system until we better understand these humans and their impossible behavior. As the council session ended, none of the representatives realized they had just witnessed the beginning of a war that would reshape the galaxy forever. Dr. Mirandal adjusted her breathing apparatus as she walked into the council chambers. As the galaxy's leading xenopsychologist, she had spent the last 3 months studying the human prisoners from the New Horizon incident. Her findings would disturb every member of the Galactic Council. The chamber was more crowded today. Word about the strange humans had spread, and representatives from dozens of smaller worlds had come to hear the report. Fear was spreading through the galaxy like a virus. If one species could refuse surrender, what did that mean for the established order? Speaker Morden gestured for silence. Dr. Mirandal will present her psychological analysis of the human specimens. Doctor, what have you learned about their behavior? Mirandal activated her holographic display. Brain scans appeared in the air above the assembly. The neural patterns looked similar to other sapient species, but there were differences that made her tentacles curl with unease. Fellow beings, I must begin with a warning. What I am about to describe challenges our basic understanding of intelligent life. The humans possess psychological traits that appear to be unique in the known galaxy. The first image showed comparative brain scans. Human neural activity was highlighted in red, while normal galactic patterns appeared in blue. The differences were striking. Every sapient species we have encountered shares certain basic survival instincts. When faced with superior force, the logical response is submission. This preserves life and allows for future opportunities. The humans appear to lack this fundamental survival mechanism. A representative from the hegemony spoke up. "Doctor, are you suggesting they are mentally defective?" "Not defective, but different. They possess what they call honor and pride. These concepts are so foreign that our translation systems struggle to find equivalent terms in most languages. Humans would rather die than live in what they consider shameful circumstances." New images appeared showing human cultural artifacts recovered from their ship. Paintings, books, and recordings that made no sense to galactic minds. The artwork depicted individuals fighting against impossible odds. The literature told stories of heroes choosing death over surrender. Their entire culture reinforces these destructive behaviors. They tell stories about individuals who died rather than submit to enemies. They consider such deaths to be glorious and honorable. Children are taught from birth that some things are more important than life itself. The crystalline collective representative made a sound like breaking glass. Surely this is a primitive phase they will outgrow. All species eventually learn that survival is the highest priority. Dr. Mirandal shook her head sadly. The evidence suggests otherwise. Humans have been spacefaring for several generations. Their technology has advanced, but their core psychological patterns remain unchanged. If anything, their expansion into space has made them more aggressive, not less. The display showed intercepted human communications, military transmissions that spoke of duty, sacrifice, and never surrendering, civilian messages that supported their soldiers and promised to fight any invader. Even human children drew pictures of battles and heroes. During our interviews with the prisoners, we discovered something even more disturbing. The humans aboard the New Horizon were not soldiers. They were farmers, scientists, and engineers seeking to establish a peaceful colony. Yet when attacked, they fought with the same determination as any military unit. Fleet Admiral Kexrin of the Zephyrian Navy leaned forward. "Doctor, what military capabilities do they actually possess? Their individual technology is primitive, but their tactics are sophisticated. More importantly, they appear to be naturally aggressive. Human history is filled with constant warfare between their own kind. They have developed military strategies and weapons that we have never needed to consider." New tactical displays appeared. Human weapon designs that emphasized portability and ease of manufacture. Military doctrines that assumed soldiers would fight to the death. Training programs that taught civilians to become fighters within days. The most concerning discovery is their concept of total war. When humans fight, they do not distinguish between military and civilian targets. Their entire population becomes part of the war effort. Children carry supplies to soldiers. Elderly individuals manufacture weapons. Everyone participates in the conflict. The chamber erupted in horrified whispers. The idea of involving non-combatants in warfare violated every galactic convention. For thousands of years, wars had been fought between professional military units while civilian populations remained safe. Admiral Kexrin has provided additional intelligence about human military encounters. "Admiral, please share your findings." The Zephyrian officer stood up, his scaled skin showing stress patterns. 3 weeks ago, one of our patrol groups encountered a human cargo vessel in the Kepler system. Following standard procedures, they demanded surrender and boarding rights for inspection. The display showed a small human ship surrounded by 5 Zephyrian cruisers. The odds were so overwhelming that resistance should have been impossible. The human ship opened fire immediately. During the battle, their captain transmitted a message to our fleet commander. She said, "Tell your leaders that humans do not submit. We will fight you in space, on our worlds, and in our dreams. Death before dishonor." Images from the battle showed the human ship continuing to fight even as it was torn apart. When boarding parties finally reached the bridge, they found the crew had triggered some kind of self-destruct system. No prisoners were taken. The humans died for nothing. They gained no tactical advantage. They inflicted minimal damage on our forces, yet they chose death over capture without hesitation. Dr. Mirandal nodded grimly. This behavior has been consistent across all encounters. Humans will not surrender, will not negotiate from a position of weakness, and will not accept any form of subjugation. They appear to view these choices as preferable to death. A new voice spoke from the assembly. Ambassador Teleron of the Confederation of Free Worlds had been listening quietly. Doctor, what do you recommend? How should the galaxy respond to this threat? The xenopsychologist paused before answering. The humans are not a military threat to our major powers. Their technology is too primitive. However, they represent an ideological threat that could be far more dangerous. The display showed maps of galactic territory, thousands of worlds where subjugated species lived peacefully under the rule of stronger powers. The entire galactic order depended on the acceptance of this system. If other species learn about human resistance, it could inspire similar behavior. The concept of choosing death over surrender could spread like a disease. Millions of worlds that have accepted their place in the galactic hierarchy might suddenly decide to fight for their independence. The terrible implications hung in the air. The galaxy's entire political structure was based on the principle that might makes right. If species stopped accepting this principle, the result would be chaos on an unimaginable scale. There is another concern. Our psychological profiles suggest that humans are naturally expansionist. They will not be content to remain in their small corner of space. As their technology improves, they will seek to spread their influence and their dangerous ideas. Admiral Kexrin spoke again. What are their current military capabilities? Limited but growing rapidly. Intelligence reports indicate they are mobilizing their entire industrial capacity for war production. They appear to be building weapons and ships at an unprecedented rate. More concerning, they are developing new technologies specifically designed for combat. The final images showed human shipyards working around the clock. Construction projects on a scale that defied logic for such a small species. Weapon designs that prioritize destructive power over efficiency or cost. The humans are preparing for a war they cannot win, yet they show no signs of reconsidering their position. They would rather build weapons than attempt diplomacy. They prefer to prepare for death rather than accept submission. Speaker Morden struck his gong for attention. What is your recommendation, Doctor? The humans represent a threat to galactic stability that goes beyond their military capabilities. Their ideas are dangerous. Their refusal to accept the natural order could inspire others to similar madness. I recommend immediate action to contain this threat before it spreads. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. For the first time in 50,000 years, the galaxy faced an enemy that could not be reasoned with, could not be intimidated, and would not surrender. The humans had introduced something new and terrifying into galactic civilization, the idea that freedom might be worth dying for. As the session ended, military commanders from dozens of worlds began making plans. The human problem would have to be solved quickly and decisively. The alternative was too dangerous to contemplate. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of Kepler Station, watching the alien fleet approach. 300 warships from 3 different galactic powers surrounded her small outpost. It was the largest military force ever assembled in this sector of space. Against her station's 20 defensive platforms and 5,000 colonial marines, the odds were impossible. She touched the communication panel with steady fingers. Her message would be transmitted to every ship in the alien fleet and relayed across human space. History would remember what happened here. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Colonial Defense Force. We have received your surrender demand. Our reply is this: you want our station? Come and take it. But know that every corridor, every room, every inch will cost you blood. We are human. We do not yield. Through the observation windows, she could see the massive alien ships taking positions around the station. The lead vessel was 5 times larger than anything humanity had ever built. Its weapons could probably destroy the entire station with a single volley. But that was not how galactic warfare worked. The aliens wanted to capture the facility intact. They needed human prisoners to study. They expected a quick surrender followed by occupation. They were about to learn why humans had earned the galaxy's fear. Fleet Commander Yithazar of the Combined Galactic Forces reviewed his tactical display with satisfaction. The human station was a simple design, built around a large asteroid in the Kepler system. It served as a supply depot and administrative center for human colonies in the region. Intelligence reports indicated a population of 50,000 humans, including civilians. The station's defenses were pathetic by galactic standards. Ancient kinetic weapons and primitive missile systems that could not penetrate modern shields. A few squadrons of human fighters that would be destroyed within minutes. The humans had no energy weapons, no plasma cannons, no gravitic mines. Victory was mathematically certain. Signal the human commander, Yithazara ordered. Offer them one final chance to surrender. Remind them that resistance is futile. The reply came within minutes. Admiral Chen appeared on the communication screen, her face calm but determined. Behind her, Yithazara could see human personnel preparing for battle. They showed no signs of fear or confusion. They looked ready to fight. Fleet Commander, I understand you represent 3 galactic powers. That's impressive. We're honored that you consider us worth such attention. But my answer remains the same. If you want this station, you'll have to take it by force. Admiral Chen, please reconsider. My fleet contains weapons that could destroy your entire station in seconds. Your people will die for nothing. Surrender now and they will be treated according to galactic conventions. Chen's expression never changed. Commander, you don't understand humans very well. We've reviewed your galactic conventions. Living as slaves is not acceptable to us. We prefer to die as free people. Begin your attack whenever you're ready. The transmission ended. Yithazara stared at the blank screen in confusion. He had dealt with hundreds of species during his military career. All of them had eventually seen reason when faced with overwhelming force. The humans appeared to be genuinely insane. All ships, begin the attack. Target defensive positions only. We need the station intact for study. The battle for Kepler Station began with a massive bombardment. Alien plasma cannons and gravitic weapons struck the station's outer defenses. Within the first hour, half of the defensive platforms were destroyed. Human fighters launched from concealed bays only to be shot down by superior alien technology. But something was wrong. The humans were not fighting like any previous enemy. Instead of massing their forces for a decisive battle, they had scattered into small groups. Human fighters were not engaging in traditional combat. They were ramming alien ships. Sir, we have a problem, reported the tactical officer. The human fighters are conducting suicide attacks. They're using their ships as missiles. Yithazara watched the display in horror. Human pilots were deliberately crashing their fighters into alien vessels. The primitive ships could not penetrate modern shields, but the impacts were causing system failures and crew casualties. Most shocking of all, the humans were volunteering for these missions. This is insane. What strategic purpose does this serve? Unknown, sir. But it's affecting fleet morale. Our crews are becoming disturbed by these attacks. The bombardment continued for 6 hours before the station's outer defenses were neutralized. Yithazara then ordered the boarding operations to begin. Assault troops from 3 different species prepared to capture the station. They expected token resistance followed by mass surrender. The first assault shuttles docked with the station's outer rings. Boarding parties equipped with the galaxy's most advanced weapons entered the human facility. They found corridors filled with smoke and debris, but no immediate resistance. The humans seemed to have retreated to the station's core. Then the trap was sprung. Explosions rocked the docking bays as hidden human charges destroyed the boarding craft. Alien soldiers found themselves stranded inside the station with no way to retreat. The corridors erupted with gunfire as humans emerged from hidden positions. The fighting was unlike anything in galactic military doctrine. Humans used their knowledge of the station's layout to maximum advantage. They had turned every room into a potential fortress. Alien troops faced booby traps, ambushes, and suicide attacks around every corner. Report, Yithazara demanded as casualty reports flooded in. The humans have turned their own station into a weapon, the assault commander replied over the communication link. They're using the ventilation systems to move troops. They've rigged explosives throughout the facility. Every doorway could be trapped. How can they fight so effectively with primitive weapons? They're not trying to win, sir. They're trying to kill as many of us as possible before they die. They're fighting like cornered animals, but with intelligence and planning. The battle raged for days. Alien forces slowly pushed deeper into the station, but the cost was enormous. Human defenders fell back from position to position, but they never surrendered. Even wounded humans continued to fight until they collapsed. Most disturbing of all, human civilians were participating in the battle. Children as young as 10 years old carried ammunition to fighting positions. Elderly humans operated makeshift weapons. Scientists and engineers had abandoned their peaceful work to become soldiers. Admiral Chen's voice echoed through the station's communication system during the worst of the fighting. Remember why we fight. Remember what it means to be human. They can kill our bodies, but they cannot kill our spirit. Every shot you fire, every life you take sends a message to the galaxy. Humans do not surrender. Humans do not kneel. Fight well, die proud, and know that your sacrifice will inspire others. On the 15th day of the siege, alien forces finally reached the station's command center. They found Admiral Chen at her post surrounded by the bodies of her staff. She had been wounded multiple times but continued to coordinate the defense until the very end. "Admiral, surrender and your remaining people will be treated with mercy," Yithazara offered through his assault commander. Chen looked up from her console, blood streaming from a head wound. "Commander, you still don't understand. Mercy is not life in chains. Mercy is the chance to die free. My people made their choice. We all made our choice." She pressed a final button on her console. Explosions echoed through the station as the humans triggered their last surprise. The command center collapsed, killing Admiral Chen and the remaining assault troops. The siege of Kepler Station lasted 847 standard days. When it finally ended, the cost horrified the galactic forces. Of 50,000 humans defending the station, fewer than 3,000 surrendered, and only when they were unconscious from wounds or exhaustion. The alien losses were catastrophic. Over 200,000 soldiers from 3 different species had died, taking a single space station. The economic cost of the siege had bankrupted several smaller worlds that contributed to the effort. Most terrifying of all, the humans had broadcast their final battle across all communication frequencies. Every human colony had watched Admiral Chen's last stand. Instead of discouraging further resistance, the siege had become an inspiration to the entire human species. Yithazara stood in the ruins of the command center, looking at the destruction around him. His forces had won, but it felt like defeat. The humans had accomplished something impossible. They had made victory seem like failure. A communication from the Galactic Council arrived as he prepared his final report. The message was brief and ominous. Long-range sensors have detected massive fleet movements from the Terran system. The humans are coming. The galaxy had won the battle for Kepler Station, but in doing so, they had awakened something far more dangerous than a single human outpost. They had awakened the fury of an entire species that would rather die than live in chains. Fleet Commander Yithazara stood before the holographic display showing the Sol system, humanity's home. 2 years had passed since the siege of Kepler Station and everything had changed. The small blue planet called Earth was no longer the backwater world they had dismissed. It had become something that defied all galactic understanding, a fortress world. "Show me the orbital defenses," he ordered his intelligence officer. The display zoomed in on Earth's surrounding space. What they saw made seasoned military commanders question their own sensors. The planet was surrounded by defensive platforms that dwarfed anything in galactic arsenals. Massive weapons batteries floated in perfectly coordinated orbits. Space elevators stretched from the surface to enormous orbital shipyards that worked without rest. "How is this possible?" asked Admiral Drakmore of the Crystalline Collective. 2 years ago, this species barely had chemical rockets. Now they have defensive systems that rival our greatest fortress worlds. The intelligence officer, a nervous Velthon named Kessun, consulted his data tablets. "Our analysis suggests the humans have been preparing for this war since first contact. Every human colony, every outpost, every ship was designed with military purposes in mind. What we thought were civilian installations were actually disguised weapons platforms." More images appeared. Human colonies throughout their space had revealed hidden weapons. Asteroid mining stations were actually missile bases. Trade ships carried concealed armaments. Even passenger vessels had been designed with military capabilities. They turned their entire civilization into a war machine, Kessin continued. Every human adult appears to have some form of military training. Their industrial capacity is focused entirely on weapons production. They have been building for total war. Yithazara studied the tactical projections with growing unease. The combined galactic forces had assembled the largest invasion fleet in recorded history. 12,000 ships from 17 different species, all united in crushing human resistance once and for all. The mathematical odds still favored the aliens by a vast margin, but mathematics had failed them before. "What about their fleet strength?" he asked. "Unknown, sir. Our deep space sensors detect ships throughout the Sol system, but many are hidden behind planets, moons, and asteroid fields. Conservative estimates suggest they have built several thousand vessels in the past 2 years. Several thousand? That's impossible. They lack the industrial base for such production. Sir, the humans appear to have converted their entire economy to military production. They have built shipyards inside asteroids on the far side of their moon, and in the depths of gas giant atmospheres. They are using every available resource for weapon construction. Admiral Drakmore's crystalline form flickered with agitation. What type of weapons are they building? That's where things become disturbing. Human weapon designs are unlike anything in our databases. They prioritize destructive power over efficiency. Their ships are not designed to capture territory or preserve resources. They are designed to kill. The display showed intercepted human ship designs. The vessels looked crude compared to elegant galactic architecture, but their purpose was unmistakable. Every line spoke of aggression and violence. Gun batteries covered every surface. Armor plating was thick enough to stop plasma weapons. Most concerning of all, many ships appeared to be designed for ramming attacks. They're building suicide weapons, Ythazara realized. Ships designed to be destroyed in the process of destroying enemy vessels. Not just ships, sir. Intelligence reports indicate that humans have weaponized everything. Their space stations can detach sections and use them as missiles. Their cargo containers are filled with explosives. Even their communication satellites have been equipped with kinetic weapons. The implications were staggering. The humans had not just prepared for war, they had transformed their entire society into a weapon pointed at the galaxy. Every human installation, every piece of technology, every individual person had become part of their military machine. There's something else, sir, Kessin said quietly. The humans have been broadcasting messages to their population. We've translated some of them. A new display showed human communication intercepts. Military leaders giving speeches to crowds of millions. Civilian leaders calling for total mobilization. Children singing songs about defeating alien invaders. The entire species seemed united in their determination to fight. One message stood out among the others. It came from the human leader called President Martinez, speaking to the entire planet. My fellow humans, the galaxy comes to crush us because we refuse to kneel. They believe that superior numbers guarantee victory. They do not understand that we fight not just for our lives, but for our souls. We fight for the right to remain human. We fight for our children's freedom. We fight because we would rather die standing than live crawling. Let them come. Let them learn what happens when you threaten humanity's home. The message ended with images of human military preparations, soldiers training in the ruins of cities, civilians learning to use weapons, children being evacuated to underground shelters. The entire planet was preparing for invasion. How long until we reach Earth? Ythazara asked. 6 hours, sir. Long-range scanners are already detecting human scout ships at the edge of the system. Signal the fleet. Prepare for battle. And remember, we are fighting for galactic civilization itself. If the humans win here, their ideas will spread throughout the galaxy. The natural order will collapse. The combined galactic fleet moved toward Earth in perfect formation. 12,000 ships representing the most advanced military technology in the galaxy. Their weapons could destroy planets. Their shields could stop stellar radiation. Their soldiers were equipped with armor and weapons that made them nearly invincible. It should have been enough to crush any resistance. The first sign of trouble came when human ships began emerging from unexpected locations. Vessels that had been hiding in asteroid fields suddenly powered up their engines. Ships concealed in the shadows of moons revealed themselves. Most shocking of all, human warships rose from the surfaces of planets where no ships should have been able to operate. Sir, we're detecting human vessels throughout the system, the tactical officer reported. They were waiting for us. The humans had turned the entire Sol system into a trap. Their ships were not massed in a single defensive fleet as expected. Instead, they were scattered in small groups that could attack from any direction. The aliens found themselves surrounded by enemies they had not seen coming. All ships maintain formation and proceed to Earth, Ythazara ordered. Do not be distracted by small raiding groups. But the human attacks were not random raids. They struck with precision and coordination that spoke of careful planning. Human ships would emerge from hiding, launch devastating attacks on isolated alien vessels, then disappear before reinforcements could arrive. The human tactics violated every principle of civilized warfare. They did not announce their attacks. They did not offer surrender terms. They simply appeared, struck with maximum violence, and vanished into the void. Most disturbing of all, the humans were winning. Sir, we've lost over 300 ships in the past 4 hours. the tactical officer reported. The humans are using hit-and-run tactics that we cannot counter. Impossible. Our sensors should detect any approaching ships. The humans appear to be using stealth technology we don't understand. Their ships can remain hidden until they're almost within weapons range. Ythazara stared at the tactical display in growing horror. Red symbols marking destroyed alien ships were scattered throughout the system. The humans were picking apart his fleet piece by piece like predators hunting a wounded animal. Then came the moment that changed everything. As the alien fleet approached Earth's orbit, the planet's surface lit up with weapons fire. Not just the orbital platforms, but the planet itself. Mountains split open to reveal massive gun batteries. Oceans erupted as underwater missile bases launched their payloads. The moon became a giant weapons platform, its entire surface covered with human military installations. They weaponized their entire world, someone whispered over the communication channel. The battle for Earth had begun, and the humans were not fighting to survive. They were fighting to destroy every alien ship in their system. They had turned their home into a weapon, and they were willing to sacrifice everything to protect their freedom. As explosions bloomed across space and human ships closed in from all directions, Ythazara realized the terrible truth. The galactic forces had not come to conquer Earth. They had come to die in the graveyard of the combined fleet. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in a chamber half empty with fear. 6 months had passed since the disaster at Earth, and the galaxy would never be the same. Speaker Morden looked older, his bark-like skin showing stress patterns that spoke of sleepless nights and terrible decisions. Ambassador Zethkari limped to the speaker's platform, his left arm missing from a human plasma charge during the retreat from Sol. His purple skin had turned gray with exhaustion and defeat. Around the chamber, representatives from dozens of worlds sat in shocked silence. Many species had withdrawn their fleets to defend their home systems. Others had simply vanished from galactic politics entirely. Fellow beings, Zethkari began, his voice hollow with fatigue, I must deliver the final report on what the humans call the Battle of Sol. What I tell you will change how we understand warfare, courage, and the very nature of intelligent life. The holographic display activated, showing the aftermath of humanity's victory. Debris fields where the combined galactic fleet had been destroyed. Human ships patrolling the outer system. Most shocking of all, human vessels were now venturing beyond their home system, carrying messages that terrified every galactic power. The combined fleet consisted of 12,000 ships from 17 species. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Of those 12,000 vessels, fewer than 800 escaped the Sol system. The humans achieved what every military strategist claimed was impossible. They destroyed a vastly superior force through pure determination and tactical innovation. Images from the battle appeared. Human ships emerging from impossible hiding places, coordinated attacks that struck with surgical precision. Most disturbing of all, human vessels that continued fighting even as they were destroyed. Their crews choosing to ram enemy ships rather than accept defeat. The humans did not just win a military victory. They demonstrated something that challenges the foundation of galactic civilization. They proved that superior technology and numbers do not guarantee victory if the enemy refuses to surrender. A representative from the hegemony spoke up. Surely their losses were also catastrophic. No species can sustain such warfare indefinitely. Zethkari's expression grew darker. Human casualties were significant but not decisive. More importantly, their victory has had consequences far beyond the Sol system. The humans have done something unprecedented. They have begun liberating other species. The chamber erupted in confused murmurs. The concept of liberation was so foreign that most languages lacked proper words for it. For 50,000 years, the strong had ruled the weak. It was the natural order of the galaxy. Human fleets have appeared in 17 different systems, all of them containing species that were subjugated by major galactic powers. Instead of conquering these worlds, the humans offered them something unthinkable: independence. New images showed human ships arriving at various alien worlds. But instead of the expected bombardment and invasion, the humans were broadcasting messages of freedom. They were destroying the orbital control stations that kept subjugated species in line. They were arming local populations with weapons and training. The humans claim they are fighting for something they call universal liberty. They believe that all intelligent species have the right to govern themselves. They are spreading this idea throughout the galaxy, and other species are beginning to listen. The terrible implications hung in the air like a toxic cloud. The galactic order depended on acceptance of hierarchy. If species stopped accepting their place in the natural order, the result would be chaos on an unimaginable scale. There is worse news. The liberated species are not just accepting human protection. They are adopting human ideas about resistance and self-determination. 3 formerly peaceful sectors are now in open rebellion against their previous rulers. Admiral Drakmore of the Crystalline Collective spoke from her position near the chamber's edge. What are the humans demanding? What are their terms for peace? Zethkari activated a new display showing a human diplomatic message. The speaker was Admiral Sarah Chen, somehow alive despite reports of her death at Kepler Station. She looked older and bore visible scars, but her eyes burned with the same determination that had terrified the galaxy. This is Admiral Chen, speaking for the Terran Federation and our allies. We have received multiple requests for negotiations and peace talks. Our response is simple. We never wanted your territory, your resources, or your servitude. We wanted only to be left alone to live as we choose. You forced this war upon us, and we fought it as humans fight, without surrender, without compromise, without yielding our freedom. The recorded message continued, and Admiral Chen's words sent chills through the assembled representatives. Now we offer you what we always wanted for ourselves. The right to exist as you choose, free from conquest and domination. The age of galactic empires is ending. The age of free worlds has begun. They want to reshape the entire galaxy, Zethkari explained. They are not seeking to build their own empire. They want to destroy the concept of empire itself. They believe that every species should be free to determine its own destiny. The implications were staggering. If the humans succeeded, the galaxy's entire political structure would collapse. Thousands of years of established order would vanish. Chaos would reign as every species demanded the right to self-governance. What do they propose instead of the current system? Asked the representative from the Free Worlds Confederation. They call it the Terran Accords. A galactic constitution based on human principles of self-determination and mutual respect. They want to replace conquest with cooperation, subjugation with alliance, empire with federation. The display showed the proposed human system, a galactic council where every species had an equal voice regardless of military power, trade agreements based on mutual benefit rather than exploitation, mutual defense pacts to protect smaller worlds from aggressive neighbors. It was a beautiful dream and a terrifying nightmare. Many species are already expressing interest in these accords. Zethkari continued. The humans have demonstrated that resistance to overwhelming force is possible. Their victory has inspired others to question why they should accept domination by stronger powers. Speaker Morden struck his ceremonial gong. What is the military assessment? Can the humans be stopped? No, Zethkari replied simply. Human technology has advanced rapidly during the war. More importantly, they are no longer fighting alone. Dozens of species have joined their cause. The rebels now have access to galactic technology and human tactical innovations. The combination is proving unstoppable. Images appeared showing mixed fleets of human and alien vessels working together. Species that had been enemies for millennia were now united under human leadership. The galaxy's former victims had become its liberators. There is one final development that you must understand. The humans have activated something they call Protocol 7. They are no longer just fighting defensively. They are actively hunting down what they call galactic tyrants and removing them from power. The chamber fell silent as the full meaning became clear. The humans were not content to defend themselves and their allies. They were waging a war of liberation against every major galactic power that relied on conquest and subjugation. Admiral Chen's final message was directed specifically at this council, Zethkari said quietly. She stated that any species or government that refuses to accept the Terran Accords will be considered an enemy of galactic freedom. The humans are prepared to fight until every world is free. A new holographic message activated. Admiral Chen appeared in the chamber, speaking directly to the assembled representatives. Her voice was calm but carried the weight of absolute determination. Leaders of the galaxy, you have a choice to make. You can join us in building a new order based on freedom and mutual respect, or you can continue to cling to the old ways of conquest and domination. If you choose the latter, know that we will not negotiate with tyrants. We will not compromise with oppressors. We will fight you until freedom rings on every world in the galaxy. The message ended with images of human and allied fleets throughout galactic space. They were no longer hiding in the outer rim. They were everywhere, carrying the message of liberation to every corner of the galaxy. Speaker Morden looked around the chamber at the frightened faces of galactic leaders. The vote is before us. Do we accept the Terran Accords and abandon the galactic order that has existed for 50,000 years, or do we continue to resist? The vote was closer than anyone had expected. In the end, exhaustion and fear won over pride and tradition. The galaxy had learned a terrible lesson. Some enemies cannot be defeated because they would rather die than surrender. The Terran Accords were signed 6 months later in the same chamber where the galaxy had first learned about human resistance. The ceremony was attended by representatives from over 3,000 worlds, many of them free for the first time in millennia. Admiral Chen stood at the podium where Speaker Morden had once ruled over a galactic empire. Her words were broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. Today marks the end of the Age of Empires and the beginning of the Age of Freedom. We have proven that liberty is not given by the strong to the weak, it is taken by the brave from the oppressive.